Hello, I'm Isaki, author and creator of It's Not What It Seems. Today's tale is going to be taking us down a path that only rage can guide us on. Go ahead and dim the lights, and if you want to listen to some Chevelle, by all means, let's get right into it. Today's tale is called Seeing Red Again. The sound of a solid watercolor paint stick being grated against a wet, textured ceramic dish resonated in the air. Round and round, the handheld dark stick moved methodically, mixing with tiny drops of water. Typically, the sound was relaxing and hypnotic, usually sending me into a trance-like state. Today was not one of those times. Not in the slightest. Last night, I was up late worrying over money. Rent was drawing near, and I just barely had enough to get me by this week. My red eyes were tired and dry. They burned every time I blinked. I stared down at the white art desk I sat at, with an open laptop before me, and closed my eyes. The sting subsided after a few moments of rubbing them with my coarse fingers. To struggle was the way of most artists, so one could only imagine how much more an artist assistant struggled. I turned around in my black swivel chair to look at the artist I worked for, Leo. The creak and groan of broken plastic reminded me yet again of my financial situation. Round and round went the red pigmented stick in Leo's hand, his long fingers stained with multiple colors of ink. His attention was solely on the work in front of him, attempting to create the exact shade he was looking for. Dark eyes furrowed beneath a wrinkled brow in concentration. Paintbrushes, ceramic dishes, glass jars, razors, and pencils of all colors lay scattered across his wide, stained desk. The project we were working on was a tedious one, to say the least. This was our third attempt at a commission, as Leo kept finding fault within his work. To be a perfectionist was both a blessing and a curse. He sighed loudly as he threw down the stick and pursed his lip. "This isn't right," Leo exclaimed with irritation. "How is she supposed to scream for attention when the colors are not right?" He gestured his bare arm wide for the extra-large piece we were working on. On a third table behind mine, on thick watercolor paper, done in realism, was the ethereal woman. She had long, silver hair flowing behind her as she walked toward the viewer down a dark cobblestone street. Light and shadow danced across her youthful face and echoed down the street. The lady's expression reminded me of the Mona Lisa. Was she content with a glimmer in her eye, or did the curves of her lips betray a level of sadness? On the nights when I came in alone to do my part, mainly assisting in the layering of the shadows and texture, I'd catch a glimpse of something sinister within her face. But when I rubbed my eyes and opened them again, she was back to providing a puzzle of expressions. For the past week, I was assigned the task of finding new red pigments my superior previously never used. Each one I presented was inspected by him, and if it passed his approval, a rush order was placed. Strewn about the studio on shelves, tables, even the floor, were dozens of shades of red paints in tubes and sticks. Not one met the standard of emotion Leo strived for. I turned around and brought my attention back to the bright laptop screen with too many tabs open. The cup of coffee I drank an hour ago finally kicked in, but instead of making me feel more alert, I felt a silent irritation begin to arise. At least the incessant grinding has stopped for now, I thought as I reached out to scroll through a new webpage. Silently, I glided down the site's selection of vivid colors, making my way to the warm, fiery shades. I snapped my head up from looking down at the screen. Leo's artist chair squeaked in a rapid tempo as his leg bobbed up and down anxiously. I turned my head ever so slightly to see his chin resting on a fisted hand while his bent elbow pushed down onto his steady leg. "Hey, Leo, I know you're anxious, but could you please?" I gestured with a forced smile to his shaking leg. Leo lifted his head and looked over at me. "Oh, sorry, I'm just stressed and need to let it out some way. I'll stop." "Thank you," I replied. "Do you think you'll find any new colors soon?" he asked as he stood and walked over to the painting. He stared at the young woman in a long, wispy dress. I sighed, as quietly and slowly as I could. This was the 4th time today he had asked the same question. I looked up at the clock on the wall. 5 hours had passed since I showed up. The ticking of the clock's hand that counted the seconds gnawed at my patience in the moment of silence that lingered. I still hope so, I replied after a moment, which was the same answer I gave the last 3 times. This is it, Leo stated. He was talking about the woman, the painting. He believed that she was the best thing he was ever going to paint, that she was to become his legacy. It must be finished perfectly. Are you sure she needs red? We've been looking at reds for a week, and I don't think there's many options left. You got colors from Japan, from France, from... She must be finished perfectly. Perfectly! And to be perfect, she needs red, Leo yelled. His head tilted down in a dark fashion as his eyes moved up to meet mine. Then he sighed gently as his eyes softened. He spoke in a voice that sounded beaten down. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell. She needs red. Maybe this will sound crazy, or maybe not, because you're an artist too, but she spoke to me the way art does, and she wants red, needs red, craves red. Leo's footsteps dragged loudly across the floor over to the tiny refrigerator. It was irritating. I looked down at my hands and saw them tremble. My aggravation and anger began to swell within me. I bit the inside of my lip to keep my mouth shut and breathed out heavily through my nose. I aggressively began to type loudly as I opened yet another new tab. Next came the sound of a can of soda being opened. The quick psh, followed by a loud chugging. It sounded moist and obtrusive, beating down to my ears, spiraling until it reached my overstimulated brain. I felt my heartbeat quicken with loud pounds against my ribcage. Leo let out a loud sigh of satisfaction and crunched up the empty can. That didn't help much, he complained. Suddenly, the cell phone in his pocket rang a high-pitched jingle. Hello? He said as he answered it. I stared at the red colors on my laptop screen as I was forced to listen to Leo's conversation. Oh, hi there! Really? That's amazing! Yeah. I'd love to take that on as soon as I'm done with the one I'm working on now. It shouldn't be too much longer. Can you send me the details and we'll arrange a meeting soon to go over everything? Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for thinking of me. You too. Have a good day. Bye. Another project? But we've been working on this one for 3 months, and there's still so much more to be done. He's got to be fucking kidding me, I thought silently. My brow was stuck in an aggressive scowl as I sat scrolling on my laptop. Then my screen froze up. I aggressively slammed a couple of buttons on my keyboard. Are you fucking kidding me? Leo walked over next to my desk with a beaming smile. Hey, that was Claire Sutherland, and she's got a huge new project for us. I am so excited. She didn't give me many details, but she did name a price point. Finally, the recognition I deserve. I'll be able to eat out whenever I want, move from my townhome to an actual house, and live stress-free because you know that once she owns anything by an artist, everyone around her will want one as well. I couldn't have asked for a better person to recognize me. I have to finish her first, though. Leo looked back at the painting for a long, sullen moment as his smile faded. So I need you to put an effort to help me get this done. You can't waste time anymore, okay? Got it. The perfect shade of red must be found, and I need you to finish up the shadows. You haven't added anything to the painting in over a week. If you keep this up, I may have to find a new assistant. Leo walked back over to his chair as I sat in stunned, fuming silence. Leo was quickly rocking his leg again as he picked up another watercolor stick, and once again went at it with grinding it down. Maybe if I try mixing these, he mumbled to himself. He breathed heavily through his mouth. Demanded the clock. I felt my blood pressure rising. Squeaked the chair. My knuckles on my clenched hands turned white. My laptop, still frozen, with a 54% battery, died. And then I snapped. A wave of red bleeded into my line of vision as I jumped up. My heart pounded heavily in my chest. My chair flew back behind me to the ground. I thrust my arms on my laptop and flung it violently toward the blank white walls that to me were now a stark crimson. I snatched an X-Acto knife from the supplies near my desk. The artist I turned to face faded back and forth from normal color to tones of red. "Whoa, you okay?" Leo asked as he looked up from his pigments, his eyes wide in surprise and conveyed a blatant confusion. "You think I haven't been putting in any effort?" I screamed at the top of my lungs so vehemently that my ears rang. "I put just as much effort into this painting as you, and my name will never be at the bottom. It will never be known." I stomped towards him with knife in hand. Leo slowly stood up from his chair. Now hold on." He put his hands up in front of him, palms facing me, elbows bent down. "Let's talk. I've done most of the detail work in the background. 3 times. I'm the one who's been looking for red pigments and paints, not you." I felt all of the natural sounds around me fade away, muffled by my voice and the blood pumping past my eardrums. The dull rhythm seemed to egg me on further into madness. "And what do I get from you? Complaints, threats, and peanuts as payments? The painting is perfect." I'm sorry I said anything after the phone call. I got selfish. I caught up in the moment." Leo circled around to his work of art. The girl in the painting gazed as though nothing abnormal was happening before her. "How about you put the knife down? I'll help you look for more red, and we can discuss—" "You still want red?" Spit flew from my mouth as I locked eyes with Leo. This pompous fucker in front of me no longer felt human, but neither did I. He was a dirty black spot on my pure red canvas. Okay, we can pass on the red." Leo's voice was quivering as he tried to sidestep back away from the painting. He must have thought it was a thing that was triggering me, and not him. Oh, what a fool. No, I remember now. She's the one that needs red, right? I darted my eyes toward the woman. In response, her eyes seemed to dare me to give her what she desired. "I've got a fucking red for you!" I squeezed the X-Acto knife in a death grip as I lashed out my arm from one side to another in wide, sweeping motions. Leo's hands and arms instinctively jumped up higher to protect his face as he cowered. Aggressively, I sliced both of his arms with my blade, making him scream out in pain. A smile spread across my face as hot specks of blood flew off my knife and landed all around us. The artist pulled his arms down, mouth gaping open and making unintelligible sounds of shock and pain. Leo instinctively tried to put pressure on his profusely bleeding arms with his hands, but they were bleeding as well. His hands slipped against his skin. His eyes turned from his wounds to me. In half sobs, he tried to ask, What are you doing?" This gave me the moment I wanted. I felt my eyes grow huge and my heart quicken even more. My rage consumed me. There were no thoughts, only primal instinct. Aiming at Leo's throat, I slashed out yet again more fierce than I had previously. A brilliant crimson spray of liquid squirted out from his artery. Leo's pupils widened, till his eyes were black circles being drained of life. He turned to his painting in shock and confusion, reaching out for the woman, who reached back, accepting her offering. Vivid droplets of red splattered against the painting, as though an artist's brush was at work. I sliced my mentor again and again, gripping his shoulder to turn him back toward me. Slowly choking on his own blood and then slumping to his knees. His eyes turned to look at his painting one last time. Leo's body thudded to the floor. A large pool of blood spread slowly outward. And then everything grew still and calm and quiet. The only sound I heard was my heavy breathing. Not the clock. Nothing from outside. Nothing from Leo. I looked down at him while my vision faded from red back into the normal tones of color. I dropped my knife. Moments ago, my whole world was red. I could not tell just how much of a mess I made, but now that my rage was subsiding, everything around me in this small, white, windowless space now dripped with red. I stood in it, was covered in it. I could even taste red on my tongue when I finally closed my dry mouth. I looked directly at the painting we worked on for months to create. The woman who once resembled an enchanting elf could now pass for a malevolent vampire. Leo's blood sprayed perfectly across her white dress and into the background. Her eyes looked almost satisfied now. Her smile was not quite as hidden. It was breathtaking. You were right, Leo. She did need red. So, what'd you think about that? Have you ever gone into a fit of rage? Have you ever briefly had everything turn to stark crimson red? Hopefully not. It's a pretty scary moment, I'm sure. Keep care of yourself. Work on controlling yourself, because you must never fall down that tunnel of rage and allow so many things to spiral out of control. Because once you wake up from it, you'll realize that it wasn't as it seemed. I'll see you next time. Bye. My brow was stuck in an aggressive scowl as I Gosh. This one's gonna have a lot of bloopers in it. My brow was stuck in an aggressive scowl. My brow was stuck in an aggressive scowl. Scowl, not scowl. That's not a word. Scowl. I don't think it's a word. Never heard of that. For the past week, I was assigned the task of finding new red pigments my superior previously never used. The sound of it immediately off the bat, I like myself. By the way, a friend of mine that lives in Mexico made this ring, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite rings. I'm going to tag her below because she totally deserves recognition. Alright,